Millions of people worldwide are still falling for the idea of cosmic oneness. They believe that there is something like a gigantic hive mind of which we are all just individual parts, experiencing our lives so the greater singular consciousness can learn about itself. This belief in some singular master consciousness is as misdirected as the belief in some anthropomorphic God who rules the universe, and even looking at the concept of a God as ruler specifically shows the mindset of billions of humans on this planet who have the psychological need to be ruled over. It is simply the relinquishment of personal responsibility on the largest scale imaginable. Too many people believe that it is some overarching form of consciousness guiding the universe, or some God or another who is at the helm of all creation. We are never responsible for our own actions, our own evolution. It is always something outside ourselves that must do it for us. This is the greatest fallacy that humankind on this planet has ever adopted, and it is also our greatest failing characteristic as a species. Hello, greetings, and welcome to Awake in the Age of Revealing. The opening quote was by Endall Beall from his book Willful Evolution. The topic for today's discussion is towards a higher cognition. And ladies and gentlemen, in many of my latest presentations, I've worked to demystify the idea of spiritual advancement and to expose many of the pitfalls that abound on the path to greater conscious awareness, particularly many of the traps set by the New Age that ensnare followers into cul-de-sacs and are specifically designed to derail those seeking advancement or greater cognitive awareness. Terms such as spiritual or consciousness have been shrouded in erroneous doctrinal belief systems and New Age platitudes of love and light or pseudo-mysticism. None of the systems, ancient or modern, have done a damn thing to move human consciousness forward an inch, because they are nothing more than gilded cages for the mind, heart, and spirit, and thrive on externalization and abdication of personal responsibility. As long as anyone seeks externally that which can only be found within, they will forever be lost in a maze of misdirection and first cognition, dead-end, ego-gratifying ventures that keeps consciousness trapped within a low vibrational expression. Endless distractions serve to keep the human being from ever looking within and discovering his or her full potential, and lock down the consciousness within a never-ending feedback loop of frustration, disappointment, angst, and misdirection, keeping the human mind firmly anchored within the first cognition. There are forces at work that are scared shitless of human beings discovering what we may become if only we could navigate across the abyss into a higher cognitive awareness. The good news is that it's already happening as individuals take on the mantle of responsibility and internalize their focus and efforts towards their own cognitive advancement, their own willful evolution. The forces of tyranny are finished, and they know it. Like the first cognition, tyranny will not go willingly. The amount of fanfare, drama, and mayhem to come is directly proportional to the willingness of the individual to venture into the unknown and willingly evolve their perspective into a higher cognitive awareness and step into a new paradigm of human experience. As one can easily ascertain, the majority is so firmly locked within ego consciousness that it will take a massive shock to even begin to initiate the process within them. The amount of suffering an individual will experience in the coming shakeup will depend on their ability to willingly and consciously push forward into a higher cognitive state of awareness. This is not a process of acquisition. It is far more a process of letting go. I've spoken a lot lately about the birthing of a new paradigm of human consciousness, advancement, and experience, and much of what it takes to assist in defeating the petty tyrant within our own minds. But ultimately, this is an individual process, and no one could do it for you. Others who have walked the road may offer insights or information in an advisory capacity, but it is truly up to each individual to progress and move forward within their own cognitive awareness. The new paradigm of human consciousness and awareness will not contain martyrs and victims. It will not simply be another tyrannical, authoritarian control structure wrapped in different clothing. One with even a modicum of awareness can see where that has led, It's been one dead-end venture after another, which has pushed this planet and her inhabitants to the precipice, teetering on the very edge of our own extinction. In the second book of the Handbook for the New Paradigm trilogy, this is spelled out clearly. The choice to participate in the creation of the new paradigm must not involve commitment to enslavement by another set of rules and regulations that simply control in a different way. That would not be a new paradigm. Herein lies the difficulty of transcending what exists and conceptualizing an entirely different framework of experience. It is only the statement of purpose that is necessary. It must then be followed by a slim, concise outline. Fleshing it out will be the adventure of the new future. A very basic outline will not seem to be enough, but if more is attempted, it will be contaminated with the concepts of the present. Surely, mankind has had enough of the same old, simply repackaged, and that has always produced physical and spiritual indigestion. We simply cannot move forward into a new experience while maintaining first cognition perspectives. It will not work. The first step lies within the individual transition of consciousness, and that will not come without enormous effort, commitment, willingness, and resolve. When the ego feels that its control is slipping away, it will stop at nothing to maintain its falsely enthroned status. Again, from embracing the rainbow. First, focus on the individual consciousness transition from victim to victor. It is the victor that writes the history. This time, do not bother to write the history of the past. It is what it is, and there will be no time to care. It is time to move on. This time, it is the victor that will write the history of the future. The victim mentality must be overcome if humanity is to ever come into the true understanding of our magnificence and potential. The ego thrives on being a victim of one sort or another, and we have a planet of billions of victims. Like energies attract like energies, so those who are stuck within the limiting victim consciousness attract to themselves not only other victims, but also victimizers to fulfill the experience. They are two sides of the same fucking coin. I contend that if you want to act, express yourself, and live like a victim, life is going to treat you like one. If you act like a poor me and put yourself out there as such, I promise you, life will oblige that level of consciousness. A victim mentality will only deliver to you a victim reality, and until you can take responsibility for this truism, nothing in your life will ever, nor can it ever change. This is the attitude that needs to be transcended, and if you cannot grasp this concept, please, at least don't advertise your victimhood with such reckless zeal. It's ugly, it does not work, and all you will succeed at is attracting fellow victims and victimizers to fulfill that idea or belief that you harbor about yourself. Humanity has been indoctrinated to see themselves as victims, and this takes on many permutations. It has been deeply ingrained within the psyche on so many levels that it goes largely unnoticed as we plod along in first cognition, never even noticing that we are attracting to ourselves the very energetic experiences to fulfill the victimhood stance that so many exist within. The ego loves playing the role of victim as it seeks validation from other egos that its victim position is justified, and the act of offering faux compassion to bolster the victim mentality in others binds the two together. They feed one another. It is a perpetual cycle of extremely low vibrational energy exchange, and in a sense, the one offering false compassion to simply comfort the victim ego is the victimizer, because they offer nothing of real substance to uplift the victim. They simply support the victim's position and, in a sense, feed it with their energies, which keeps the victim locked within those parameters of victimhood, and that is called being a victimizer. Of course, this is usually done unconsciously and with the best of intentions, but we know where the road that's paved with good intentions leads. There are very few alive in this age that have ever even gotten a glimmer into the magnitude of the true self. The ego, unconsciousness, is the veil that blocks this understanding of what it means to be a human being functioning within the second cognition state of awareness. The ego is the gatekeeper. The voice of higher cognition, the voice of the self, is ever present, but the chatter of the ego must be turned down in order for it to be perceived, and this is a monumental feat. It is not impossible, but it requires unshakable effort and commitment. Higher cognitive perspective is never something that is simply going to be given to you because the ego will do what it always does, cheapen it, and do its very best to place it into tiny little boxes to try and categorize that which cannot be categorized, to define the undefinable. I put it like this. How can you possibly place infinity into a box? The labels, the trends, the division and separation, the cultural memes and false ideologies born of a world of the ego which only serve to distract and deceive are nothing more than emotional, psychological, and spiritual prison cells. As I've stated repeatedly in my presentations, we are taught to identify with the aspect of the psyche that produces its endless chatter, or with the masks it wears as it plays out its roles in life. As I stated earlier, this is an individual process, but others may offer their own experiences and perceptions that can assist someone who is working to advance their perceptual awareness. In other words, those who are walking the path may be able to point out to you where the piles of shit are so that you don't step in them. This is exactly what I've been attempting to do with many of my latest presentations that have poked holes in much of the New Age tenets of doctrinal nonsense and mystical dead-end belief systems. There's a trap waiting at every turn, and this is especially more effective when we externalize to find our answers or to gain higher understanding, as we've been conditioned and programmed to do. When we can begin to pull away from all of the external stimuli, the bread and circuses, the minefield of traps laid out to ensnare consciousness, and begin to internalize, then and only then may we begin the process of walking the rocky road that leads to the higher perceptual awareness of the second cognition. I would suggest that a great first step would be to lay to unwavering scrutiny everything you think you know and have been taught, be it religious ideologies, political affiliations, traditions, societal worldviews, the shit you heard in the media, your schooling or education, and what it is that you think makes you tick. I would also suggest to view anything that takes your focus off of yourself, that demands your energy or adoration, with highly suspicious eyes and thoughts, be it a belief system, a guru, or any kind of perceived authority in any capacity that presents itself. The new paradigm will consist of individuals that know who they are and act in balance as their own authority. Acting with autonomy, when mutual respect is given, will move us forward as a species in leaps and bounds, as opposed to the current state of ego-driven competition that has brought humanity to its knees and has kept it there for millennia. Honestly, despite all of the ego controls of the first cognition and the prison paradigm born out of such dead-end consciousness, the road to true freedom as a species is just a change of mind away. Well, and a change of heart. Again, it begins with an internalizing process and the letting go of that which holds us in first cognition and no longer serves us. Indeed, the time has come to begin this process, and that must first begin with each individual's desire to be a part of the solution. Another idea I could offer, and these are simply suggestions. I'm not offering any kind of new doctrinal rules to follow to advance cognition. Treat it like you would when you're shopping for a new outfit. If it fits and you like it, then wear it. If not, then take it off and try something new. This is not a one-size-fits-all guideline. Each individual consciousness and experience is unique. As I've said over and again, stand within that uniqueness and let nothing violate your sovereignty. I offer the suggestion to stop placing so much stock into what others think of you. Doesn't it matter far more what you think of you? At the end of the day, does it really matter what some judgmental asshole thought of you? Examine how this affects you and others. It truly is a situation of crabs in a first cognition bucket, tugging and clawing at the other crabs, trying desperately to pull them back into the confines of the pail and its desperately limited expression. I suggest detaching a bit from your normal, everyday reactions to situations and emotional attachments to them. If you can reach an observational point of perspective and not be so emotionally reactive, you can begin to see the operation of the ego all around you, but more importantly, within yourself. This is where the door opens. A higher observational point of perspective has been reached, and then one can not only clearly see the first cognition in all of its fucking glory, but it can begin to operate more from that observational perspective, which can act as the facilitator to a more holistic second cognition perspective. Detach and observe. Monitor how you react on reflex action to people, events, and situations. One thing the ego loves to do is place instant value judgments on material things or appearances. Programmed and indoctrinated egos seem to maintain a massively superficial obsession with the physical. They identify with the physical vessel, not the animating consciousness, the true identity. An ego will, within its own thought processes, through superficial judgment, push down another to give itself a sense of being elevated. This is made manifest, as we can plainly witness in the petty tyrant, like the schoolyard bully who picks on the weak kid, while other egos prop him up and try to gain approval of the tyrant. Now, bring that up the fractal and observe how it functions in the world at large. The ego is body-oriented, obsessed with a fucked up sense of beauty, fear of aging, weight, diet, skin tone, wardrobe, hair color, the size of your dick, fear of death, silicone tits, and the outfit you're going to wear to work today to impress others and gain approval from other egocentric expressions that are doing the same thing. People drive themselves mad, killing themselves to keep up appearances, to avoid harsh judgments or criticisms, because they don't want other egos to do what their own ego is doing to others. Value judgments, superficial criticisms, and often harsh rejection based on first cognition obsession with the material. What the fuck is this? The cognitive equivalent of second grade? Apparently so. What can the true you, the real you, without all of the ego-programmed responses and demands, offer to the creation of a different way of expressing and experiencing? A new paradigm. How will standing within the light of your own magnificence as a sentient, conscious being of second cognition help to anchor the frequency of a new existence into manifested reality? If you can't set aside the ego and at least begin to ponder these things, well, then you'll never know. I would suggest that becoming aware of and examining the ego and its machinations enables one to eventually let go of the stranglehold that this level of cognition currently maintains as it runs amok over our minds and world, our relationships and our expression, our very experience of reality, and what we truly can become. If only we have the courage to stand forth within our own selfhood, our own power, our own magnificence, and rise into the glory of what the human experience was meant to be. Again, it's just a choice, and you have to decide. No one can make that choice for you, and conscious advancement will not come gift-wrapped in a nice, neat package with a pretty little bow. A certain ruthlessness must be adopted so that one can overthrow the falsely enthroned tyrant king within their own mind, the ego, and all of its stifling and limiting expressions. I'd like to shift gears a bit and introduce the idea of the 4 universal laws as explained in the Handbook for the New Paradigm Trilogy. To reiterate, these works are not some sort of Bible to me. They are not my fucking roadmap. It's just that I think many of the ideas presented within those messages are valid and offer workable and practical solutions, something that is sorely missing from New Age teachings, certainly from religions, and from the alternative research community at large. There certainly seems to be a lot of fear-mongering and ego tirades, but I haven't seen many solutions offered apart from the bullshit, love and light, New Age garbage, and claptrap offered by agents of Fabian Theosophy. Yeah, they'll give you the truth, but it will be shrouded, and no practical solutions will be forthcoming. Again, look to yourself to be your guide. The law of attraction. Like energies attract like energies. This concept, like the second law, the law of intention, has been so twisted and corrupted, and like everything else the New Age gets its filthy hands on, it has been cheapened and reduced to ego gratification appeal. Books such as The Secret, which has sold over 19 million copies, reduces the law of attraction to some kind of magical, wishful thinking ritual and completely debases the true law of attraction. Millions of dollars get thrown around twisting universal law and in effect selling you your own enslavement. This is how the consortium operates. The mind is the plane of causality. Thought creates as vibrational energy is emitted, which attracts similar, energetic, sympathetic frequencies. Hence, the victim will attract other victims and a victimizer to fulfill the experience. The masochist will attract the sadist and vice versa. The villain will attract the hero. The oppressed will attract the oppressor in this never-ending circle of duality, of ego-centered, low-vibrational, first cognition enslavement. Where your thoughts dwell will be reflected in your physical experience. That is the law of attraction. The law of purposeful intent. The law of intention and the law of attraction work in unison. In fact, all of the laws work together in a cohesive but not necessarily linear expression. They each affect one another, and the idea is to understand how they function and apply them with knowledge to your experience to be birthed and lived into wisdom. The law of intent is the fuel to the fire of the law of attraction. What you willfully intend will manifest in some way, but you must have the discernment to know the difference between first cognition intent and second cognition intent, and they are worlds apart. Intent still manifests, even if it is not a conscious action. If, within your mind, you have no purposeful intent, no willful direction, then the ego will navigate the ship straight into the rocks. The intention must come from the higher point of awareness, or else you're pretty fucked. Intent doesn't mean that you just think about something and it just simply appears. I intend for a Mercedes to be in my driveway by morning. I intend to win the lottery. I intend to meet my supermodel soulmate trophy wife. Best of luck with that shit. Willful intent must be followed with action, thereby allowing the law of attraction to draw in the frequencies to coalesce the energies into a harmonious balance. If the intent was imbalanced to begin with, then of course the result will be disharmony. Without any idea whatsoever of these universal laws, the ego is running the show in this energetic pigsty of discordant, low-vibrational muck. Focused intent is very powerful when petty ego nonsense is removed from the equation. How about this? I intend to alter my perspective through focused and deliberate intent, and through the law of attraction, bring the experiences necessary to assist me to facilitate my own willful evolution, my own cognitive advancement. You don't hear much of that kind of talk these days, do you? The law of allowance. This is the most difficult of the universal laws to put into practice. If the intent is coming from a point of ego, the patience required to adhere to the law of allowance will not be present, and chaos will manifest. The law of allowance is trust. You must trust and have faith in yourself. In yourself, not some nebulous godman in the sky or some new age doctrinal bullshit. Trust and have faith in yourself. The law of allowance is the expectant waiting, trusting that the outcome of your intent will manifest through the law of attraction to give birth to the desired outcome, the balance of the situation. Allowance is patient expectancy. It is timelessness. The ego and the law of allowance do not mesh well. They don't get along because the first cognition perspective is extremely impatient. The truly difficult part of the law of allowance is that to truly be operating within it, one must be willing to sacrifice any emotional attachment to the outcome. Emotions generated from the first cognition perspective can cloud the intent and therefore distort the end result. The law of balance. The law of balance is the natural outcome of the application of the first three laws. Again, all of the laws work together. So, for example, willfully intending from a balanced perspective sets the wheels in motion for a harmonious outcome when allowance is maintained. True balance lies beyond the duality of first cognition perspectives. It is a blended coalescence of energies forming a balanced whole. Once we can get the ego out of the way of this process of application of the universal laws, we can willfully draw to us the experiences that can assist in the advancement of our cognition, not necessarily manifest the winning lottery numbers. The ego always seems to get in the way with its petty little desires and demands. It truly is the petty tyrant within our awareness, or lack thereof. The road towards a higher cognitive awareness is one filled with detours, roadblocks, and pitfalls at every turn. Anyone telling you any different is either trying to sell you something, or they're just completely full of shit. Hold these crystals and meditate, and you will reach enlightenment. Oh, well, best of luck with that. You'll be meditating till the end of time. Advancement is a conscious, willing act and requires enormous effort and determination. It is an extremely destructive process, and so few are willing to go through the pain that accompanies shattering ego illusions. So few are remotely aware that there is something outside of the tiny box of first cognition where they dwell. It is all they know. Humanity is in the midst of a war, whether you realize it or not, whether you like it or not. This is a war for cognitive advancement of an entire species. Most could never even remotely entertain this truth as they stumble in circles in the world of the first cognition. The matrix has you. The way forward is to create a new cognitive expression, to lay the framework for a new paradigm for humans becoming through the application of the universal laws to help to facilitate our own conscious and willful evolution. Each must decide where they stand, and many will fall by the wayside, stuck in the world of ego constraints of the first cognition. This is the gathering point, the parting of the ways between those who will courageously push forward into a new paradigm and those who will stubbornly and steadfastly refuse to let go of the world of the first cognition. Either way, it's a choice, and again, no one can make it for you. I'll end this today with a couple of quotes. First, again, from Beall. This is great, so true, pay attention. This planet needs a revolution, but not a revolution of violence. We need a revolution in the advancement of our consciousness, and that advancement can't take place so long as continually we pay homage to the altars of the accepted perceptions of our current reality, whether it is in relying on ancient scriptures or depending on peer-accepted authorities from which we must qualify any new idea that presents itself to our consciousness. We are slaves to a system of cognition that must be overturned if we are ever to advance our cognitive abilities and mature as a species. Along the same lines, I put it this way. A revolution is needed in today's world, a new kind of revolution. Waving placards in the streets or voting for the evil of two lessers is not going to do it. A revolution in consciousness is required, and the coming together of humanity as one family despite the manufactured divisions and illusions that separate one from another. It is long past the time to claim our spiritual renaissance. Ladies and gentlemen, my thanks to any and to all that take the time to open their mind and courageously search for the truth. Thank you for giving me your time today and listening to Awaken the Age of Revealing. I greatly appreciate it. This is Doug Michael, and until next time, walk in peace.